Good afternoon. So what I would like to talk to you about is, I think the right word is the motivation for going into the vortex. And so I've heard you talk about sort of tricking myself into feeling good. And I know that the motivation should be to be happy, to be joyful. But then I've also heard you talk about, like with this woman, the painter, and I've heard you talk in the past about painters, that there's just a joyfulness or blissfulness of engaging in that process. And so I'm a professor. One of the things I do is I write. And so I want to find the place or the motivation for getting into the vortex to do that.
Well, it's interesting because we're going to play with you a lot around this. But this is the most significant thing that you raise here, and it's really a good context. Motivation is what you do when you're outside the vortex and you try to boot yourself in. Inspiration is what happens when the vortex calls you in. So we've been talking for many years about the difference between motivation and inspiration. But it wasn't until we began offering the analogy of the vortex that we could really make that understanding come alive, that the vortex, which contains all that you've become, who you really are and all that you want, is brewing and stirring and is powerful. And law of attraction has it moving with strong power of attraction. So in the spirit of what we've been talking about already here today, in more than one conversation, is that if you're able to deactivate the stuff that's keeping you out of the vortex will call you in. So we want you to want to be inspired in rather than want to motivate yourself in, because the truth of it is you can't motivate yourself into the vortex. That's what we were talking about as we were playing with these cards earlier. You just can't find the right mindset. What it's really coming down to, and we've been talking about deliberate creation for a number of years, and we've offered a lot of different processes. And through many of them, it has simply come across, and because that's the way we've offered it, as you just have to begin to control your mind and direct your thoughts more deliberately. And as you direct your thoughts more deliberately, then you'll get more of what you want. But these days, as we are really fine-tuning this science of deliberate creation, as we're talking about the power of the vortex, what it really comes down to is you can't buck your own current. And if you've got a current going that isn't in alignment with what you want, you've just got to find a way to stop offering that current. And so it is because of that very reason that Esther and Jerry, it was Jerry's powerful desire, were inspired into the creation of this Getting into the Vortex meditation CD, because it amplifies what we're giving to you here, and we can feel you receiving it completely, that what you want to do is just, if you can deactivate, by quieting your mind, those things that are keeping you out, the vortex will take you in. So maybe what you meant, and we can feel this a little bit, because it actually, the part we were teasing you about, that we're going to have a lot of fun with you here, we were going to sarcastically, which never comes off good when we offer it, tease all of you about you need motivation to line up with all that you want and who you really are. In other words, you need motivation to align with the energy that creates worlds and have it flow through you toward whatever you are wanting. You need motivation to align with that breathtaking realization of your own power and your own worthiness. In other words, we can stand and proclaim from our perspective all of the deliciousness that is waiting for you in the vortex, but we can only call you in. So, as it turns out, getting in the vortex really is more about not doing that thing you do that keeps you out. That really is what getting in the vortex is. And if you want to put it in that context, I want to feel motivated to no longer do that thing that keeps me out of the vortex, then that might be an apt desire. But we want to say, if you'll just chill a little, the vortex will take you in. And then when you do your work from inside the vortex, which is, first of all, recognize that you're in. Second, compliment yourself for being in. Next, revel in being in. Next, appreciate being in and try to find the vibe of it and try to amplify the vibe of it. That's the way if you wait until you're in, and everybody is in, everybody's in, occasionally at least. And so when you find yourself in, that's when you want to do the work. And when you do the work when you're in, it's more likely you'll get in again. And when you appreciate being in, it's more likely you'll be in again. And that way you're letting the vortex inspire you in rather than trying to motivate yourself in. We've never seen anybody motivate themselves successfully to anything. There are so many people in your world that are trying to motivate you through fear. They're trying to motivate you. Look how bad it is. If you continue doing this, then these bad things will happen. And all they do is manage to help you amplify what you don't want more, which causes you to hold yourself apart from what you want more. The good news in all of that is it does cause launching of more rockets to which you have no access. But it does expand the universe and your world.
And see, that's what I mean why I'm not sure that motivation is the right word, because...
Clearly not.
Because it sounds ridiculous for me to have to be motivated, like you're saying, to feel better, right? But it was an apt word, because what you're saying, and you're speaking for a lot of people, is, I get this, Abraham. I accept the reality of the vortex. I know I want to be in there, but I'm having these thoughts that are keeping me out. What can I do about that? And for us to just say, stop thinking those thoughts, is not a very exciting answer to such a very big question, but it is the only answer. In other words, find some way. And our friend helped us talk about the prison and the prison door and the key in the prison door. In other words, bridge, 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 bridge. The answer is just reach for the best feeling thought that you can find about the subject, and before you know it, you're in. And watch those around you who are chronically in, which would be your dog, which would be your children. In other words, the chronically in the vortex are really good examples. Watch them and watch how reluctant they are to leave the vortex, and watch how they revel when they're in there. Watch how over the top they are. Watch how they don't hold back. Watch how really obnoxious to the world that's not in the vortex they seem. In other words... So, because I feel like there are parts of my life and parts of my job, for example, teaching, I love it. It doesn't feel effortful to me. I enjoy being in the classroom.
So no motivation needed.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
And so is it, with the writing, for example, it's just the resistance that I'm feeling, and I need to reach for better.
Here's what we would do in the spirit of deactivating the resistant thought. So you take the subject like writing, which is the subject where you're feeling some resistance, and break it down a little bit. In the moment of feeling the resistance, stop and ask yourself, what is it about this that's bothering me? That's a good way to start. Now, we can tell you, because we're standing in your vortex and because we know everything about everything, we can tell you exactly what the resistance is. When you're in the moment teaching, you have these eager minds who you've already forged a relationship with. And they are literally, we're not kidding you, they are evoking knowledge from you. And that's why it feels effortless. Their desire to know and your desire for them to know, it's a collaborative, co-creative experience. And so it feels good to everyone involved. And that's something, your classroom is sort of quantifiable to you. It's in the moment, you know them, you've already won them over, you already adore them, you can feel their appreciation for you. But when you think about writing, now there's a big world out there full of critics and full of intellectuals who are not ready to go along necessarily with everything that you are thinking. And so you are envisioning, you don't mean to, but it's sort of part of being in a broad world where there's a lot to be said about everything. So you are superimposing their criticism over your end result before you've even written it. which is the best way to kill inspiration that we could ever, in other words, imagining how someone else is going to respond to something that you've created is really a killer. And the reason is because you know, wisely so, that you can't trust them to like what you write. But you know why? You know why you can't trust them to like what you write? The majority of them are not even in the vibrational vicinity of even getting what you write, which is not true of those in your classroom. They're in the vicinity. You know they're going to get you. They've moved themselves into the position where the likelihood of them getting you and the likelihood of all of you together moving to a new exhilarating place is really strong. That's what is so exciting about gatherings like this, is it's co-creation, live, in the moment, happening, new thought occurring, taking the universe to a place that has never been before with this unique conversation, you see. So let's say you're thinking about writing and you find yourself feeling tense about it. And if you're going to write, you're going to have to make yourself do it because you don't feel like doing it. And so you stop and you say, well, I guess I could use discipline and make myself sit and write, but there's no point in it when I feel like this. And so I'm not going to do that. But I am going to identify what's bothering me about this. And usually, if you'll stop in that moment, you'll discover that the thoughts that were in the mix were thoughts of worrying about how it was going to be received. Thoughts of self-doubt. You started to say that. You started to say some self-doubt.
Yes.
But you see, we don't interpret it as self-doubt precisely. We interpret it as wise acknowledgement that a lot of people aren't going to get me. And if you call that self-doubt, then you're crippled. If you call it law of attraction, not bringing those who aren't ready, then that's a perfect thing. You see? So now you feel that. And it feels like maybe I'm not ready. And then you say, wait a minute, it's not me who's not ready. It's a lot of the world who's not ready, but I'm not writing to them anyway. Then that feeling goes away. In other words, when I write what I know, and I know what I write, and I feel the inspiration flow through me, I'm really good at that. And those who want it and those who are ready for it, they will be a perfect match to it. And there are plenty of them for me to be a successful writer. There are plenty of them for me to be a successful writer. This is becoming a world, and more of you are beginning to feel it, where the nicheness of you, the niche markets, the niche hobbies, the niche interests this is the time for them. Look at what's going on. In other words, there is not a television station in the world that wants Abraham. Because they know their audiences. They know the majority of their audience isn't ready for this. Do you know how patient you are? How willing you are to sit here and encourage us on to the next nugget of the expanding universe? You are a unique group of people, and the majority of people out there in TV land are not there. But do you know, out there today, all over this planet, every continent or excepting one, there are people receiving this live broadcast who want to participate in this precise, concentrated, very unique, very leading edge conversation, you see? And that's what you want to remind yourself, whether you are a painter, because your painting is magnificent, but it doesn't appeal to everyone. Your books are magnificent. Your music is magnificent. What you do is magnificent, but it does not appeal to everyone, nor does it need to. Law of attraction will bring those to you who are a vibrational match, but you've got to be a vibrational match to your own work first, you see. So we've said for a long time that one who is connected to the stream, now we are saying one who is in the vortex, is more powerful in terms of attraction power than millions who are not. So it's not about whether they're ready for you or not. It's whether you are in alignment with who you are. And when you line up with you, you broadcast a signal that makes you more findable. It makes you more reachable. It makes you more seeable. That's one of the most magnificent things about publishing. Do you know? You get into the vortex in order to receive it.